Hello and welcome to the Arctic Beyond. I'm your host Jack Ball, and on this channel we're all about the Arctic, and maybe even a little bit beyond. Now let's talk about Iceland, shall we? You all know about Iceland, right? It's a land of amazing music, of things like Sigur Rós, of Björk, of monsters and men, of that sound people make when they eat rotten shark for the first time. Something kind of like raw. Imagine that from hordes of tourists all coming together to make that sound together. Beautiful. It's beautiful if you think about it. It's also that place where Game of Thrones disappointed millions and where a volcanic eruption might just ruin your whole day in Spain. So it's the volcanoes that are bringing us here today. That is the main topic of discussion. So if you've not seen the news, Iceland is in the minute of a bit of a volcanic episode. Volcanic eruptions, they aren't anything new to about the 360,000 people who live in Iceland. You'll have periods where there's not much going on, but I reckon you can probably average about one eruption per year, around about. And the vast majority of the time, they are just in a remote location. They're not particularly big eruptions, just a nice reminder of the kind of natural environment that Iceland is so famous for. The problem, though, is that the last few months, it has definitely been quite different to that. And part of that is simply how frequent the eruptions are taking place. What's different this time is that the eruptions are all happening in the exact same place, and they're happening very, very frequently. And they are certainly of quite serious consequence to quite a few people in that area of Iceland. The area that's going through this, it's called the Reykjanes Peninsula, which you'll see here. So you see you've got Reykjavik off to the side, that's the capital city and the only really major city in Iceland. And then it's this peninsula to the south, and that peninsula is actually very important for Iceland. It's the most densely populated part of the country outside of the capital city, outside of Reykjavik. It has the only major international airport in the country. If you've ever been to Iceland, probably 95% chance you flew into that peninsula, into the town of Grindavik. It's also home to the Blue Lagoon, the best place on earth to get covered in hot white slime. Trust me on that. And that's actually Iceland's most popular tourist attraction. Single most popular tourist attraction is the Blue Lagoon, and it's also home to a major power plant, which powers many, many towns in the area. I'm sure some of the reason this part of Iceland was so heavily settled was because of how relatively calm it is when we're talking about natural environments. While certainly there have been small eruptions and there's lots of very small, inconsequential earthquakes happening, the Reykjanes Peninsula actually didn't see a single volcanic eruption in the last 815 years. That all changed March 2021. There had been a few years of increasing earthquake activity along the Reykjanes Peninsula, which hinted at, okay, something might be brewing here. But, that's not uncommon. It is a very tectonically active country. Earthquakes are happening all over the place across Iceland. And so while an increase in earthquake activity is something to be monitored, it's not something that you can absolutely say this is a problem. In March 2021, the mountain Fagradalsfjall, can you say that? And then the mountain Fagradalsfjall burst forth all of a sudden, and it was erupting lava constantly over months. From March through to September, it was just a constant flow of lava, which provided, really, at the time, it was kind of seen as a great new tourist attraction. It wasn't causing much damage. A few roads got damaged and things like that, but in terms of significant damage, there was no threat to life. There was no widespread ash clouds or anything like that. So that eruption stopped in September, and okay, everything seems calm. Let's just continue with our lives. Cut to next year, cut to 2022, the same damn volcano, it blows again, erupts again. And it happens a year after. Both of those eruptions, they didn't last very long. Suddenly we're seeing, okay, 3 years, the same volcano has blown 3 times, one each year. Okay, something's happening here. Something unusual is happening here. This is absolutely not normal. But by July 2023, everything seemed silent. Everything had been calm for a little while. There had been years of these beautiful but ultimately harmless and spectacular volcanic eruptions happening at this one place in the Reykjanes Peninsula. But people were moving on. it was time for what is considered the most spectacular event in Icelandic history, the Eurovision Song Contest. Smash cut, December 18th, 2023, the fishing town of Grindavik. With very little warning, this happened.
So this is the moment of the eruption captured by a webcam from the Icelandic broadcaster RUV. So you can see the red-hot lava starting to erupt from the ground, shooting up like a fountain. The Icelandic Coast Guard then flew over the area in a helicopter, capturing these images of the lava erupting and spewing across the landscape. The authorities have already evacuated nearly 4,000 inhabitants of the fishing town of Grindavik.
Witness the birth of a new volcano. Welcome to the world, little one. Little I'll get this right. Sundnúkar. I think that's good. I think that's okay. Sundnúkar. Welcome to the world, Sundnúkar. And frankly, like any new birth, it was messy, painful, traumatizing, and boy oh boy, it is going to be expensive. Thankfully, about a month before, in that town of Grindavik, it had been evacuated. There had been earthquakes really suddenly increasing and getting to a point where the earthquakes were strong enough to cause damage and be dangerous to people, so the town had been evacuated. But the town actually did have a real stroke of luck. You see, although the town had been evacuated, and for about a month, the Icelandic Meteorological Office had been saying, an eruption is coming, but nothing was coming. People were getting impatient. People were wanting to return home. It was the week before Christmas. So thank God the eruption happened overnight. You see, just in the week beforehand, it had been allowed that people were allowed to return to the town during the day to collect stuff from their houses, maybe do some repairs if an earthquake had damaged something. But in general, people were coming back to the town during the day, but there was still a curfew in place at night. And in fact, there was a plan to the day after what would become the eruption day, that people were able to return to the town for Christmas. There was potentially a plan to let people just move back. Because yes, okay, the earthquakes were happening, but doesn't look like an eruption's going to happen. So really, it was frankly a stroke of luck. Even though the eruption took its time to arrive, it did arrive when it did. As you saw from the news report, a massive rift. This wasn't just a simple crater opening. A rift opened up in the earth. Lava just spewing forth from this massive rift that opened up. And it actually was spewing lava at what was later confirmed to be a world record for the fastest lava flow ever recorded. In this case, the eruption happened several kilometers away from the town. It didn't cause any major damage to infrastructure, didn't pose a major threat to people, and the eruption only lasted for 3 days. So, okay, Grant, that's what we've been building to these years. Great. Years of these smaller eruptions. Okay, one big one, just lasted a few days. Great. I'm sure we can move on with our lives. Guess how that went?
Breaking news out of Iceland. As you can see from these dramatic pictures, there is a new volcanic eruption. It has happened near the town of Grindavik in the southwest of Iceland. You'll remember that this was the same town that was evacuated last month after there was an eruption there.
January 14th, 2024. A sudden massive rift opened up. This time, it opened just 500 meters from the town of Grindavik. The last one was several kilometers away, and this one popped up right outside town. And even worse than that, the barrier was being built further than 500 meters away from the town. The rift itself, it opened up along quite a large strip of earth, and part of that, yes, was outside the barrier, great, but it went underneath the barrier, and quite a large bit of the rift opened up, with the town in its sights just 500 meters away. Lava erupts, heads directly south towards the town. That rift, thankfully the lava it headed towards town didn't quite reach the town. Okay, we can take a breath. Oh Christ, here we go. Another rift opens up 300 meters away from Grindavik. We have the warning shot fired, and suddenly the town is about to get flooded by lava. The lava quickly got to work destroying houses and roads, making part of the town virtually uninhabitable and cutting off all roads into the town, meaning that no one can get in to do repairs, put out fires. Frankly, a strategic masterstroke by this young volcano. Thankfully, this eruption, it only even lasted a day, just a single day. This eruption caused a huge amount of damage to Grindavik. Okay, right, can't get any worse than that. Can't get any worse than that. That's the end, right? That's the end, right? Right? Right?
For the third time in 2 months, a volcano has roared to life in Iceland. A state of emergency has been declared, lava destroying key pipelines that provide hot water to surrounding towns in the middle of winter.
February 8th, 2024. Here we go again. This eruption happened with just 30 minutes of warning. There was suddenly a spate of ground swelling and very strong earthquakes, and just 30 minutes later, the volcano, it once again bursts forth. This time, thankfully, it happened several kilometers away from the town in the same place as that December eruption. Okay, darling. Come on. Come join me. We have a guest today. I'll continue as best as I can. Sorry, there's some purring or meowing that happens while we're going for the rest of it. Oh, she's gone down. Okay. The eruption happened several kilometers away from Grindavik this time, mercifully not within touching distance of the town, which might seem, okay, great, we're avoiding danger. This eruption, however, it took aim at the Svartasengi power plant, that major power plant I mentioned earlier. Many barriers had been built around the power plant to protect in case of further eruption. But this eruption, oh, it hit them where it hurts. It hit the Icelanders where it really hurts. It hit them in their showers. You see, the eruption, it didn't aim directly for the power plant. It went around the top of the power plant and destroyed major hot water pipes that lead away from the power plant into the nearby towns and the major airport, along with also cutting off all of the roads to the power plant. So repairs, once again, would be very difficult. This left about 20,000 people without hot water, although thankfully it was restored in about 2 days. There was an old pipeline. They had upgraded the pipelines quite a while ago, but they were a bit lazy. They left the old pipes in. And so what they were able to do is they were able to simply connect the undamaged bits of the new pipelines to the, thankfully, undamaged older pipelines. And they were able to restore hot water for the 20,000 people that were left without it for several days. That would have been a very cold few days. Remember, this is midwinter in Iceland, and I can assure you that in the darkness of Iceland, sometimes a hot shower is all that you have going for you. And this eruption only lasted about a day once again. And so far, as we record this in early March, there's not been another eruption. There has been several times in the last few weeks that there has been warnings. It's going to happen. It's going to happen within the next few days. It's going to happen within the next week. That's happened several times over the last month. Thankfully, so far, there hasn't been a new eruption. This doesn't mean that all seems to be quiet going forward. There have been many different opinions from a variety of experts on the subject, some of which have said that, okay, this is the end. Some of which have said there's going to be eruptions in the area probably every year for the next 100 years. I've seen a massive variety of opinions, which, let's be honest, that basically means no one knows. Let's not take any of those opinions. Let's just frankly discard all opinions on the long-term subject of volcanic activity on the Reykjanes Peninsula, because right now, we don't know. No one saw this coming. No one is going to see whatever's coming in the future. So let's just deal with things as best as we can and hope for the best, really, that everyone stays safe and well. Well, what about the people of Grindavik now? They've been evacuated since November. Well, the Icelandic government just passed a bill, which means that the government will offer to buy anyone's residential property in the town. You see, of course, while people are evacuated, they're still paying their mortgages. They're still paying rent. Now, people still have huge amounts of housing debt. And so it's all well and good to say, well, you can't go back, just move on somewhere else. Some people have been stuck in Red Cross emergency facilities for the last few months. Thankfully, the majority of people, they have family, they have friends elsewhere in Iceland. But some people have been just stuck in emergency evacuee facilities for months. And most of these people cannot easily just move on with their lives elsewhere. So the Icelandic government has passed a bill. It's going to offer to buy, well, it has offered to buy anyone's property that they wish to sell up. Some people are going absolutely, some people have lived in Grindavik for probably generations, hundreds of years of their family in that town. And so I'm sure many people will choose to try to wait out the eruption, to wait out this volcanic activity and then return home. But for many people, this is a lifeline that the Icelandic government has given them. They can choose to settle up, to sell their property, and to move on elsewhere. Now, moving on to the most important story. Oh, that's not the most important story coming out of Iceland, you say? No. Not even close. Not even close. Not even close. You see, this story, it's about cats. I covered the right shoulder, yes. This story is about cats. Cats of Iceland. You've ever been to Reykjavik, in particular, the capital? The cats of Reykjavik, they are confident creatures. They stroll around the city. They know that everyone loves them. And frankly, everyone bows down to them. And they take advantage of that at every opportunity. You must give a cat of Reykjavik cuddles. Now, this story takes place in the Skatvan area of eastern Reykjavik. There is a local cat in the area named Diego. Now, Diego is a firm favourite, not just with the people, but with the businesses of the area. You see, Diego, he does have a home, does have owners, but Diego chooses to spend his days going around the local businesses collecting tributes from the customers and the managers and the employees of these businesses, as Diego is, of course, entitled to do. Now, what makes this a particularly important story? Well, one of the local grocery stores has banned Diego from entering. You heard me right. This is, frankly, a national disgrace. Now, Diego has a passionate fan base. And while we're on the subject, Diego, S-tier cat name. Love it. Grand, perfect name. C-tier human name. S-tier cat name. B-tier pirate name. Diego has been visiting the shops of the area over the last 7 years. He's garnered a massive fan base. People love Diego. Daily, there are photos going around Diego's fan groups saying, I saw Diego today. Oh, I saw him today. He let me give him a cuddle today. People love Diego. Last year, Diego, unfortunately, he had a car accident. I assume he wasn't driving. I didn't get that information, but I'm going to assume he wasn't driving. And if he was driving, I just hope he wasn't on catnip. A fundraiser was launched, and Domino's Pizza contributed to it. And that Domino's Pizza, I'm not talking about some Icelandic offshoot with the same name. I'm talking about that Domino's Pizza. You know the one. It's that place that offers a meat lover's pizza, but has the highest conversion rate into veganism since David Attenborough showed that little bunny accidentally falling into a burger factory. The accident actually reached national news, and the fundraiser was successful. Diego had the surgery. After the surgery, Diego was back out on the street, back into the stores. And when he was back on the streets, one of the locals was quoted as saying, "Ha, oh, you got sharp claws. Come on." One local, I'm going to finish this damn story. One local was quoted as saying that Diego was back like a rock star, freshly shaved. Diego was especially a fan of that grocery store where he was banned. He was especially a fan when it got cold. Now he's only allowed into the entranceway of the store, not allowed inside. Now, of course, it's a grocery store. There's food inside. That's the reason Diego is not allowed in anymore, which on the one hand, okay, I can see that making sense. But have you seen people? Have you seen how unhygienic people are? Compare that to a cat. Compare the average person to a cat. Okay? And tell me that cats are the ones who should be banned from grocery stores. Yeah, I'll wait. I'll hear any arguments against that. Well, you're all wrong if you are arguing against that, okay? I feel very passionately about this. Now, the response to this banning has been magnificent, has been absolutely magnificent from the local people and the local stores. So banned from this grocery store, but the other stores, they've made sure to make sure everyone is aware. No, we disagree with this stance. Diego is allowed here. They're putting up signs to say, we welcome Diego. They're setting up new beds. They're setting up new treat stations for Diego. Suddenly, although Diego has been banned from this one store, suddenly he's made so much more welcome in the rest of them. My absolute favorite new welcoming for Diego is in that there's a local office supply store. And Diego always loved to sleep on piles of printer paper. Cats, they do love their paper, and there was just a big pile of printer paper. People just grab a pack of it to buy. But Diego loved to sleep on the top of it. But it was, it was still just kind of uncovered. People could grab some paper even while Diego was sleeping on it. But to make Diego extra welcome, they put a blanket on the top of the printer paper. So now it's inaccessible. It's inaccessible to people. This store has made its wares unsellable in order to make a comfier bed for Diego. Now that is there human compassion personified any way better than that? That is so beautiful. I'm so happy. And Diego is being made welcome around the Skipan area of Reykjavik, even when one single place, which I don't agree with at all, has banned him. All right. I thought this was a nice little roundup of some of the most interesting news coming out of Iceland in the last few months. Of course, this is not to say this is everything coming out of Iceland. There was some news I was thinking about doing a report on, but I think I'll do a separate episode on that, which is about the whaling industry, the hunting of whales. There's been quite a lot of news regarding that. It's probably going to be an update in the next month in the country about whether whaling is going ahead in the next year. So at that point, I should have all the information to do an episode specifically on that. But, well, thank you very much for joining me on this latest episode of The Arctic Beyond. I'm still figuring out things, the location is slightly changed, and things are slightly different. But, I'm so very happy to be reporting on this for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you're learning something from it. And, like always, if you have any feedback for me, do let me know. Any comments, any praise, any criticism, absolutely let me know. I'm open to everything you might want to tell me. But in the meantime, thank you very much for being with me. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.